How is everybody doing? Hi, hello. It is time for just a bit of comfy time. Yeah, comfy time. Comfy. Where did I put my book? I put it over here. Alright, so. Hi, Miri, by the way. Hello. Let's do a recap on what happened last time. So, our good old boy, I don't even remember his name. He thinks he's the best. He, I don't know, just wants to learn and be an adult and, you know, and, he does a lot of little boy things, like, think about the hot lady dentist's boobs, you know, just like most 10-year-old boys do, I guess. And, he's also discovered that this very pretty lady can summon penguins from soda cans. Somehow. And that is where we are picking off from. Quite an odd place that we left off in. But yeah. Penwings. Exactly. Alright. That evening, I went to Seaside Cafe. Sunlight streaming from the mountain on the prefecture border turned the clouds in the dome-like sky above pink. It was like the whole town was inside a giant planetarium. Seaside Cafe sat on the side of the road like a mysterious laboratory sparkling near the shore. My father was working at a table by the windows, documents laid out in front of him. I felt bad for interrupting, but eager to talk to him, I sat down in the seat opposite. I really wasn't confident in my ability to explain the phenomenon I'd witnessed. The moment I sat down, I felt like maybe I should stay a secret between the lady and me, and that I shouldn't talk about it with anyone else, even my father. It was rare for me to sit in silence, so this may have surprised my father. He was busy drawing a diagram with a fountain pen in his grid-lined notebook, but after a while, he looked up, his eyes staring at me through his glasses. "What? Something happened?" he asked. "Dad, I've witnessed an astounding phenomenon," I confided, "but I have no objective evidence to prove it was real, so I can't say anything more. I believe I need to investigate this further before I do." "Can you give me a hint?" "It involves the lady from the dentist's office." "A little more?" "I don't know how to put this, but she's very strange. Fascinating. I am curious to know more." "I see," my father said, nodding. "It seems you found a worthy subject." He gave me some chocolate. It was on the bitter side. I use my brain so much at night that I end up getting sleepy before my little sister. I make up for that by waking up earlier, sometimes even before the sun starts rising. I'm sure I get up earlier than any kids in my neighborhood. There's a large window on the right side of my bed with an azure blind. In the morning, the sunlight filters through it, creating soft beams of light. When I woke up that morning, the light in the room was a chilly blue, like I was underwater. I was lying in bed thinking about what it would be like to be a newly born life form in the surf. The first life form had come into existence 4 billion years ago in a puddle on the rocks. It had floated there in that water. The new being was really tiny, but life gradually grew bigger, more complex, and while some creatures went extinct, others flourished until we got the world we have today. I was born to my father and mother. My father and mother were born from their fathers and mothers. Blue whales, zebras, and penguins were too. All living things were born from other living things, but a dizzyingly long time ago, somewhere, a child was born of no father or mother. I'd talked with Uchida about the origins of life before. Uchida had said, "Just thinking about it makes my head spin." How had the Earth's first strange child crossed that primordial barrier? This was an extremely critical problem, I thought. Perhaps in the future my research would make it all clear, and I'd win the Nobel Prize. I liked looking around my room, thinking about things on a worldwide scale. I couldn't see the half-built space station. I could see the half-built space station. I could see all the books my father had given me and a row of notebooks with all my research in them. On top of the bookshelf was a Triceratops skeleton made of paper, a Christmas present. On my desk was a globe my father bought me when I started school. The rucksack for exploring and the backpack for school were both next to the desk. I'd put a new notebook on the desk yesterday so I wouldn't forget about it. Don't worry, you haven't missed too much. Hello everyone, hello everyone also that has just come in. Welcome. We're just cozy and comfy, nothing big happening right now. Downstairs in the living room, I could hear my parents talking, and plates clacking. My father was eating breakfast. I really enjoyed listening to these sounds while forming a plan for the day. This morning, it felt even more fun than usual. I wonder why, I thought, and then I remembered the penguins and the lady. I had embarked on a research project of great significance. That alone made me so happy. I wanted to jump right out of bed. Just then, my sister came running in, rare for her to get up this early, and yelled, "Wake up!" She didn't know I'd been up for a while now and was all proud of beating me, even though I'd been here thinking about things of world-scale importance. My sister jumped on top of me and bounded around like a baby kangaroo. I fought back, and she got all tangled up in the blanket. When she realized she was stuck, she started crying and yelling, "Let me out!" Feeling sorry for her, I undid the blanket, and she started laughing.
"You've got missing teeth like an old man."
It is very hard to maintain the dignity befitting an older brother. Even at school, I continued my research on the penguins and the lady. I drew a picture of a penguin in my new notebook and wrote as detailed an analysis as I could of the circumstances under which the lady turned the Coke can into a penguin. I thought a lot about what her secret might be, but I had only witnessed the birth of a penguin once. I needed a lot more data. I would need the conjurer's cooperation for that. I should swing by the dentist on the way home and ask her, I thought. During break, Uchida came over and stood silently by my desk. Uchida was the silent type, but this was a much more significant silence than usual. I wondered why, and he asked, "Aoyama, are you mad at me?" Which was weird and really surprised me. Why would I be? Because I abandoned you on Sunday. I'm not mad at you. I haven't been mad about anything since I was 5. Still, Uchida said, staring at his toes, I did run away. That was bad. It was a smart choice. If you'd stuck around, you'd just have gotten caught too. Personally, I think you not getting caught was the best aspect of that situation. You do? I was being smart? I think so. That's good to hear, he said, cheering up. In the corner of the classroom, Suzuki and his group were standing with several girls, making a racket. Hamamoto and Suzuki are playing chess, Uchida informed me. Suzuki challenged her to a match. That's unusual. Suzuki made fun of her, so Hanamoto baited him into it. Whatever will we do with him? I told Uchida how Suzuki and his minions had pissed on my notebook and stolen our exploration map, and Uchida got really upset. That's so mean! How could they? But I made a copy of the notes. Don't worry, we can redraw the exploration map. I think it would be more efficient to make a new one than to try to get it back from Suzuki. You don't even get mad at Suzuki. If I feel myself getting mad, I just think about breasts. That always calms my heart. I admire that about you, Oyama, but I don't think you should be thinking about that stuff too much. About breasts? I don't know. I just feel like you shouldn't. I don't think about them all the time. Only about 30 minutes a day. Every break that day, Suzuki and Hamamoto faced off over the chessboard. Suzuki tried to distract Hamamoto, moving the pieces while she wasn't looking and generally sabotaging the game, but he couldn't find a way to beat her. Hamamoto was good. After school, the entire class was gathered around the board. Suzuki was beet red and Hamamoto was cool as a cucumber. I took a look at the board, and Suzuki's position was beyond salvation. He thought for a really long time before making any moves, but Hamamoto always made her moves immediately. Her motions were so precise, like a little robot girl lining up pieces of chocolate. I was very impressed. At last, Suzuki looked up from the chessboard and yelled, "What?" at me. Nothing. Just watching. How old is he again? I think he's like, I don't know, he's like a young kid, so he doesn't know when to not say things out loud like that, pretty much. He's like 10 or 12 or something. Don't watch, don't watch! Then he'd claimed I distracted him, and he messed up all the pieces. After that, he stormed out of class, dragging his minions with him. Oh no.
Sorry.
I shook my head, but Hamamoto didn't seem the least bit upset. She just put the pieces away, muttering, "Can't even call that a match," like she was singing in a pasture. Both Uchida and I agreed Hamamoto was very strong. On the way home, Uchida and I split up, and I went to the dentist's office. I sat on the white couch like I always did, a magazine from the rack spread out on the table in front of me. I'd found one with a feature on cosmology, so I was totally absorbed in reading it. Page after page of beautiful illustrations and text. I definitely think I know a lot about outer space, but even for me, this article was pretty difficult. I have to do a lot more research, I thought. When he was done fixing my teeth, I said as much to the dentist, and he said, "Feel free to take it home." The dentist was always willing to aid my research. "Is the lady out today?" "She called in sick," the dentist said. "You worried about her?" "I am." He smiled and patted me on the head, but said nothing more. I went back to the waiting room, and the receptionist said, "I've got a postcard for you." The postcard had a photo of a penguin standing in the middle of a field of snow. There was an arrow pointing at the penguin and a note that said, "You are here," in the lady's handwriting. Notes on a dream I had. The lady was standing on a rocky shore. Nothing else around, not a single plant in sight. I somehow just knew this was the Cambrian period sea. Dreams were strange that way. Across the sea, lightning flashed like I'd seen in a documentary about Africa. The sky was a deep blue, but with a pale glow. The same sky I saw through the blinds when I woke up earlier than all the other kids in town. I remember the lady's face as she stood there on that rocky protrusion. She looked very sleepy and somehow sad. She picked up a stone lying by her feet. The surface of the stone was shiny, like it was made of aluminum. She rolled it around her palm and gave it a cold, hard light. And it gave off a cold, hard light. The lady tucked the stone... I don't even want to read this part. I think he's just... This kid's dreams. The lady tucked the stone between her breasts, as if to warm it. Eventually, she decided it was warm enough and threw it at the sea. The stone spun in the air, glittering, wobbling like a water balloon, and then inflated. Glowing silver bubbles rose up on the stone's surface, each pushed aside one by one, the one that came after, swallowed up by it. Like a violent chemical reaction, the stone got larger and larger until it was bigger than me, bigger than the lady. It hit the surface of the water and grew larger still. At last, it became a giant, silver blue whale. That blue whale had evolved into us for some reason. This thought made perfect sense for me. The idea that the lady had made us was very pleasing, and yet she looked sleepy and sad. I wanted her to tell me why she looked so unhappy. The school grounds were a square, 180 meters on each side. When I was in 3rd grade, I spent I spent September and October researching square things. Every time I found something square in town, I made a record of it. I liked squares and thought it was wonderful how the town was laid out like a graph paper all the way to the horizon. Eventually, I began studying triangles and circles and curves, but even now, I still like squares the best. I like graph paper and still get happy when I find a square vacant lot. The school I went to was a square sitting in the middle of a square plot, so it looked like the katakana do. Uchida and I had once walked all the way around the perimeter of the school grounds. After school, taking care that the teachers didn't spot us, we'd walk past the schoolyard fence, the empty grass fields, and the parking lot. This expedition confirmed that the grounds were an exact square. Behind the incinerator, we found a second entrance to the property, a small square door in the concrete block wall. We also discovered an open drainage canal in the field next to the school. We'd recorded these findings on our map. Suzuki may have stolen it, but our discoveries were still etched in my brain. School let out early on Wednesday, so Uchida and I decided to follow the drainage canal. An investigation into where the water came from, its source. I had dubbed this expedition Project Amazon, which Uchida really liked. It was a shame I couldn't continue my Penguin Highway research, but I was juggling a lot of different research projects. If one reached an impasse, I figured it was best to work on another. After school, we went out the secret door behind the incinerator, climbed the school fence, and cut across the grass. It was cloudy, but I could tell we didn't need to worry about rain. Every now and then, the sun peeked out from between the gray clouds, lighting up the grass field as if we'd been underwater and suddenly breached the surface. The sun would only stay out for a moment, though, and our surroundings would quickly grow gloomy again, like someone was flicking the sky's light switch on and off. We walked forward, keeping an eye on our compass. Uchida was waving around a stalk of grass he'd yanked up. Apparently, they were going to build a kindergarten here, he said. But there's nothing here. I wonder if they canceled construction, or decide to build it somewhere else. I wish it was a train station, I said. If there was a station right next to our school, that would be extremely convenient. The canal we were exploring ran from east to west. It was about 1 meter wide and made of concrete. The water itself was deep, probably able to reach up to our chests. The far side of the ditch was covered in broad-leaved bamboo. Searching for the source, our party set out to the north. Uchida, make sure you don't fall in. I wonder what it's like where the water starts. Is it like a spring? Or a well? Uchida speculated. Aoyama, have you ever seen a well? I'm familiar with the concept. A really deep well would be scary. It would be like a black hole. The underbrush got thicker and thicker, making it hard for our party to progress. We tried walking on the edge of the canal, but it was so overgrown that we had to push the foliage away to make any progress. Every now and then we could see fish in the water. I looked back and found I could no longer see the school, only the fence around the schoolyard. Eventually, we came to a fence covered in arrowroot leaves. The ditch continued past it, so we hesitated a while, but eventually hopped it. After all, the source of the stream might have been waiting beyond. The fence surrounded a square piece of land about 250 meters on each side. There was a reservoir shaped like an upside-down pyramid. The drain connected to it. The water was only at the very bottom, so we didn't need to worry about falling in. The slopes leading to the reservoir were shored up with concrete blocks. There were green plants sprouting from the gaps, and the water grew what looked like space plants with sausage-shaped bodies. Grass grew thick around the reservoir's edge. I didn't think anyone ever came here. It felt like we discovered a ruin from ancient times. Inside the reservoir was a small gray tower. A narrow bridge extended to it from the bank. We went to the edge of the bridge, but there was a lock on it that kept us out. Does someone live here? Uchida asked, getting nervous. I don't know, but I think that's just for storing equipment that measures the water volume. With the grass this high, I bet even the waterworks people have forgotten about this place. Does the water come from here? I don't think so. There's another drain over there, right? I think water flows from somewhere else and then collects here for a while. That way the river doesn't overflow. Ah, Uchida said, impressed. Makes sense. I spread out the blanket at the edge of the reservoir. Uchida and I called the blanket our base. My sister had drooled all over it when she was a baby, but having been washed often by my mother, it was safe now. It was far more useful than a hand-me-down from my sister had any right to be. It was bright pea green and square. It could fold up up very small, and we could set up a base anywhere we liked. Absolutely a necessary item for any expedition. Setting up on the base, I jotted down some notes on the reservoir. Uchida whistled. It was quiet here. The school was far enough away that we couldn't even hear the bell ring. I mentioned the dentist had given me a magazine about space, and Uchida was jealous. Then he started explaining the theory that space was born from nothing. I remembered the same magazine mentioning that. I wonder what nothing is like, I said. I think it's different from just empty. If your stomach is empty, you don't say, my stomach has become nothing. It's a much bigger kind of empty. Like, so empty our stomachs no longer exist either. Yeah. That's pretty incredible. Definitely. The idea of no time or space. What's it like having no time or space? That's a very difficult concept to grasp. If there's no space, then there's nowhere for us to sit. And if time isn't flowing, then we can't even think. There's no time here. Uchida considered this for a minute. Kinda scary, he concluded. I wonder if that's where we all go when we die. Maybe that's where we were all born. Or that's where we were before we were born. Oh yeah, but I don't remember it at all. Uchida screwed up his face. Thinking about this stuff makes my head spin, like it's just going round and around. While we were sitting on the blanket, the underbrush on the opposite side of the reservoir started rustling. That wasn't the wind. There was an animal of some kind in the bush. I looked up, closing my notebook. Uchida grabbed my arm, frightened. There was a squeaking noise, and a penguin appeared. It didn't seem to care that we were there, it just waddled toward the edge of the reservoir. Then it stood there like a Greek philosopher. What's it doing? Uchida asked. Where'd that penguin come from? I don't know, I said. I was lying to him. Only I knew where the penguins came from, but I decided not to share this discovery with anyone for a while yet. Not even Uchida. If they found out the lady had the power to create penguins, government laboratories or universities would send all kinds of investigators to our town. They'd study her, uncover the means to create infinite penguins, and inform the world's penguinologist. If that happened, I'd never be able to see the lady. I wouldn't be able to research the Penguin Highway anymore. And that would be a real shame. I didn't want to lie to Uchida, but this particular research had to be conducted in secret. We stayed sitting on the edge of the reservoir until the penguin wandered off into the brush again. Seaside Cafe had a big skylight, and the owner, Yamaguchi, used a special long pole to open that window. There was a large model of a whale hanging next to the skylight. Sunlight would shine in through the skylight, giving the whale a dull silver gleam. Its spindle-shaped body would sway from side to side, its mouth wide, grinning cockily. It looked like a spaceship from the distant future, so I always paid my respects to the whale. I asked Yamaguchi what kind of whale it was once, and he just said, "Look it up." He would let me look through his telescope, but other times he just gave me homework. I observed the model carefully, took copious notes, and compared those to an illustrated book at the library. Once I determined that it was a blue whale, Yamaguchi let me have a cream soda. Blue whales were of the infraorder Cetaceae, and the family... There's so many... Now he's using a bunch of fancy animal names. The family Balaenopteridae. Yep, sure, something like that. And their scientific name was Balaenoptera. Musculus. All whales are large, but blue whales are especially large. They could be longer than 30 meters. It was astonishing that there were animals in the ocean so big they wouldn't fit in the 25-meter pool at school. I was very impressed by big things. After all, I was very small. Even blue whale babies are born 7 meters long, and they weigh 2 tons. A baby whale rolling over in its sleep could easily flatten me. I imagine these babies must have very big poops, far larger than mine. Everything about them was impressive. I often talked about blue whales with the lady at Seaside Cafe. She always smiled when I talked about baby blue whales. I woke up early, filled my rucksack with experiment equipment, and set out for Kamonohashi Park. The neighborhood was always quiet on Sunday mornings. As I passed Seaside Cafe, Yamaguchi waved at me through the window, so I waved back. I followed the bus route. A warm breeze blew from the southwest, making the leaves sparkle. The sky was dotted with white clouds like little sheep. I plucked the stem of a plant from a vacant lot and waved it like a conductor's baton as I walked. There were people gathered in Kaminohashi Park for morning exercises. There was fitness equipment placed alongside the benches and the path. There were people out walking their dogs and people sweating on the equipment. The dentist was doing crunches with a towel around his neck, so I said hello. The church was next to Kaminohashi Park. It held mass every Sunday morning. I knew the lady always attended. The town church was about as big as my house, much smaller than the big European cathedrals I'd seen on TV. But there was a cross on the roof, so it was a real church. I sat on a park bench, writing in my notebook, waiting for mass to end and the lady to come out. At last, I saw her leaving church and waved. "Good morning," I said. "Morning," she said. "Sunbathing?" She sat down next to me, her head slumped. She was pretending to sleep. "Sleepy?" I asked. "Was up all night. Weird dreams. Ambushed." "That's concerning," I said. "Can I ask for your help in an experiment?" She yawned. "Experiment? What kind?" I lowered my voice, taking every precaution. "A penguin experiment," I whispered. "You solved the mystery?" She whispered back. "Not at all. That's why I want to do an experiment." Will the experiment lead to a solution?" "We won't know until we try. Will you assist me in this matter?" "Sure. I'm sleepy, but sure." For our experiment grounds, I selected the bus terminal where she'd first shown me how she made penguins. There was little chance of being seen there. As we followed the bus route toward the terminal, I tried to wheedle a hint out of her. One that would help me solve the mystery, but she just blinked sleepily and stared up at the sky. "I feel like no penguins will show up today," she said. I couldn't tell if she meant this or was just teasing me like she always did. Honestly, I don't know why I can do it. I just find myself in a good mood, get fidgety, and then a penguin pops up. Plop. Is it always throwing a Coke can, like what you showed me here? Not always, no. So you're not clear what the principle is? It's your job to figure that out. Can you only produce penguins? I'd like to see some other animals. Like a bat. Greedy. I can't make bats, she sighed. You don't seem to be taking this seriously. I have been serious since the moment I was born. The bus terminal on Sunday was empty, not a soul in sight. I checked the schedule in the waiting room and discovered we had a half an hour before the next bus. The lady stood in the middle of the terminal, squinting her eyes at the sky above. I sat my rucksack down and began lining up the items I'd brought with me. A camera borrowed from my father, and a notebook to record everything. An empty jar I'd asked my mother for in the kitchen, an empty tin of the hard candy that I'd sucked on between rounds of research, a softball I used sometimes when Uchida came over to play, a small square cushion from the living room couch, and a glasses case my father no longer needed. I set these up in a circle around the lady. "What are these?" she said, frowning. "Test samples," I said. "I want to see if these turn into penguins or not." "You want me to stand here and throw all of these?" "Yes, I was standing over there, right?" "I forget. It's been a long while since then." The sky was fairly clear, but there was a nice breeze blowing, and I could hear the lark singing in the distance. There was no one else in the terminal. I wrote an itemized list of the conditions on the previous occasion, making it so I could check them off. I went through each carefully. All clear. I started our experiment. The jam jar, candy tin, softball cushion, and glasses case each flew through the air in turn. I stood ready with the camera, but nothing happened. I bought a can of Coke from the vending machine, had her throw that, but the same results. What was different? I reread my notes and remembered that the can had spun in the air like a spaceship creating internal gravity. I asked her to throw it one more time. Again? In the spirit of experiment. Right, you are a science kid. But the result was the same. Nothing happened. Just in case, I even had her tie a string to my tooth, made her hold it, and had her throw a can like that. This also ended in failure. Experiments failing was always sad. I considered other conditions, my tooth being loose, the time of day being the afternoon, my being tied to the vending machine, my notebook being covered in Suzuki and company's piss. There were a number of other potential factors, but none of them seemed to have anything to do with the penguin's manifestation. As I scowled at my notes, the lady came over. "You can't rush it," she said. "I had a feeling it wouldn't happen today." "Are you sure you really can't? Is it possible that you're only teasing me?" I regretted this childish outburst the moment I said it. Just because the experiment had failed didn't give me the right to cast suspicion on the lady when she had helped me out. Before I tried blaming her, I should have reevaluated my hypothesis. "Then have fun doing this alone," she snapped, starting to walk away. While I stuffed the experiment equipment into my rucksack, she went up the concrete stairs that led to the back of the athletic field. When I tried to cross the street after her, she shouted, "Look both ways!" So loud it echoed. I stopped dead in my tracks as if she'd cast a spell at me. I looked right, then left, then right again, and then crossed the street. But by this point, she was already up at the top of the stairs. I ran up the long stairs in the back of the athletic field and looked around the overgrown patch between the field and the stairs. This is where Uchida and I fought the Suzuki Empire. High-tension towers loomed over the wasteland. A gloomy forest lurked on one side. It was the same forest that was behind the hill with the water tower. Exploring a forest this size was dangerous, and Uchida and I had not yet managed to map it. The wind carried a pleasant aroma, and the plants swayed like waves in the sea. The lady was standing on the shore of this sea, holding her hand in place, looking around. "There's nothing here," she murmured. I went over to her and said, "I'm sorry, that was childish of me." "You're a child, so that's just fine. I'm scheduled to be a grown-up in another 3,811 days. Good lord, you're actually counting? Not far from us, a lark took off from the field, singing. It flew straight up and vanished into the sky like it was riding on a space elevator. The lady watched the lark go, one hand on her forehead. The lark was quickly out of sight, but we could still hear it singing. My neck hurt. "This lot's vacant," the lady said, looking around. "Wonder if they're planning on building something here. Maybe a new station. A railroad going all the way to the sea? Yes. Nice, close to the office, too. If that happens, the Seaside Cafe will be near the sea. Cool. Let's explore a bit," the lady said. It seemed she was no longer mad at me. We walked across the field. She pointed at the forest on our right. "You been in here?" "A little, but we haven't explored the depths of it. Forests can be dangerous, so precautions are necessary. You might meet a Jabberwock." "What's a Jabberwock?" "A monster from a book." As we got near the towers, the lady said, "Let's rest here." So I decided to make a base. I took the pea green blanket out of my rucksack and spread it on the ground. I would also like to mention, by the way, that by pea green... Oh, I guess it's pea green, so I was gonna say, it's not like pea-colored blanket. That's not what he's saying. But then I realized quite literally, I was saying pea green, so, you know, I think you understood that it was green and not yellow. "This is our base," I said. "Kiddo, this is a blanket." "It's a base." The lady sat down on the little blanket. "Feels good," she said, looking up at the sky. "A base, I can dig it." I thought this every time, but by making a base with this blanket, the scenery was completely transformed. The sky and land both seemed wider than they did on foot. I took... my book. Oh, stay there. Green peas? Yeah, like a pea. It means it's like a light green, I think. Usually is what that means. That's what pea green is. I took the science magazine the dentist gave me out of my rucksack and read it. While I was passionately studying my article on black holes, the lady leaned against my back. Her back was a curious temperature, both warm and somehow cool. "Sorry I couldn't make any penguins," her voice carried over my shoulder. "You've got nothing to be sorry for. Maybe I'll never make another. Maybe I just got lucky that time. I'm sure there's a rule somewhere." I lost track. Oh my gosh. Sometimes these letters are a little too small. I'm sure there's a rule somewhere. And you think you can figure that out when I can't? I am very intelligent. You're very confident, anyway. The wind brushing across the grass was pleasantly warm. Listening to the sound of the wind, I felt like I was conducting a survey from the base at the ends of the earth. The lady turned her head, peering over my shoulder at the article I was reading. Even the boss was struggling to get through that one. I'm amazed you can read it. I understand some parts of it, and I don't understand other parts of it. I have to consult other books sometimes to get through it. Anything interesting written there? The event horizon is really cool. The what now? When a really big star gets old, it becomes unable to withstand its own gravity and collapses. Once that happens, the gravity keeps pulling everything toward the center, so it keeps shrinking. It shrinks so much all the matter gets compressed and the gravitational force gets even stronger. If this keeps going, the gravity gets so strong that even light can't escape. At that point, you can no longer observe what's happening from the outside. The boundary between what can be observed and what can't is called the event horizon. That was all she said. She wasn't very interested in outer space. Then she made a surprised noise, looking toward the forest. I jumped, wondering if the Jabberwock had shown up, but there was a little girl standing at the edge of the forest. Hamamoto, I said. She's in my class. A girl shouldn't be walking alone around here. Hamamoto seemed to be thinking about something. She was treading slowly along the border between the field and the forest. Then she walked off toward the athletic field. I couldn't tell if she'd seen the lady and me sitting there. Notes on classroom rumors. A silver moon appears over the hill with the water tower. This is not the real moon, but a ghost moon. The penguins go in and out of the surface of the silver moon. Any kid who sees this happens to get sick. So don't look at the water tower hill at night, and don't ever go in that forest. The next week after school, Uchida and I went to the city library together. I liked the city library better than the school library. The collection was much more varied, and they had comfortable brown couches to sit on. I always sat on the same couch. It was hidden in the bookcases like a secret lair, and if I looked up from the book I was reading, I could see the garden through the pictured windows. In the garden was a big silver shiny statue like a giant egg. When I'd used my brain too much and it got tired, staring at this silver egg was a great way to rest it. I felt like staring at the shiny silver egg made my mind work better. I had a notebook on my knee, and I was making notes in tiny handwriting about anything interesting I found in the book. Did I just skip a little bit by accident? I might have. I always sat on the same couch. It was hidden in the bookcases like a secret lair, and if I looked up from the book I was reading, I could see the garden through the picture windows. In the garden was a big silver shiny statue like a giant egg. When I'd used my brain too much and it got tired, staring at this silver egg was a great way to rest it. I felt like staring at the shiny silver egg made my mind work better. I had a notebook on my knee, and I was making notes in a tiny handwriting about anything interesting I found in the book. This way I could remember the important points without having to borrow the book. I was sitting on the couch reading a book on the theory of relativity that the librarians had recommended. I hadn't really understood the magazine the dentist had given me, so I was reading other books as further research. As I read, I wrote E = mc squared in my notebooks. A strange equation. My father had taught me about the principles of equations, so I understood what this equation meant. Until second grade, I thought equal meant the answer is ? Like 2 + 2 is ? But this was incorrect. Equal meant that what was on the left and what was on the right were the same value. When my father told me that, it was like my world had turned upside down. I remember it clearly, a very strange sensation. I skipped? What did I skip? No, I went back. I'm fine now. Uchida was on the couch next to me reading a book on penguins. Penguins definitely do eat fish, Uchida said. Penguins are great at swimming in the ocean, I said. They go off like space rockets. I wonder if our penguins eat fish too? Uchida was talking about the penguins that had appeared in our neighborhood. I thought about this. After all, these penguins had started out as Coke cans. Did Coke cans eat fish? I don't know, but I guess they probably do, I said. I wasn't all that certain, though. There aren't a lot of fish around here. There were a few little fish in that drain, but it's possible the penguins are hungry. Do you think those penguins are ghosts? Why? There's a rumor going around about a ghost moon. Have you heard it, Oyama? I made a note of it, but that's just a rumor. We've seen the penguins a number of times, but nobody's gotten sick. Without solid evidence to back that rumor up, I'm not scared. Right. Good point. Uchida looked a little relieved. He glanced at my notebook. Is that English? It's a formula. Math. You know a lot about math, huh? That's amazing. As I was telling him about E equals mc squared, Uchida suddenly looked surprised. Hamamoto was standing in the aisle between the shelves. I'd never seen her at the library before. Her chestnut hair was sparkling. She had a book clutched to her chest. She wasn't a grown-up yet, so she didn't have any breasts. Poor boy, he's like, man, no boobs, I'm out. I guess at least he's got his priorities straight, right? This is like such an odd, interesting book about magic penguins and science and breasts. It's great. It's great. It's great. Hamamoto came down the aisle toward us. She looked down at my notes and whispered, "Theory of relativity?" I was surprised. I didn't think anyone else my age knew about the theory of relativity. I've read that book. You understand it, Aoyama? It's a little difficult. I don't have a full grasp of it yet. Me neither. It's pretty hard. The book in Hamamoto's arms was about oceanography. She pointed at the book Uchida was reading and said, "Penguins!" with a grin. Then, she walked away. Uchida and I watched her go just before she vanished around the edge of the bookshelf. She glanced back and stuck out her tongue like that photo of Einstein. Of course she didn't stick her tongue out as far as he did. Hamamoto is very strange, Uchida said. Yes, she's strange, but in a good way. I agree. I meant it like that. Just saying strange sounds mean. I was reading books and taking notes and exploring, and there were other people like Hamamoto doing their own research. I regretted thinking I was the most knowledgeable child in town. Hamamoto might actually be more knowledgeable than me. I'd better be more careful, I thought. Not letting my pride get the best of me was one of my better qualities. On my father's 3 principles. When my father showed me how to solve problems, he taught me 3 useful ways of thinking about them. I've written these on the back cover of my notebook so I can check them anytime. They're very helpful when solving math problems. This list is below. 1. Break the problem into smaller pieces. 2. Change the way you look at it. 3. Look for a similar problem. I think we can divide the penguin highway research into 2 main areas of consideration, the lady and the penguins. I like the lady, so I'd been focusing all my research efforts on her. That's why I'd gotten stuck. If I changed how I looked at it, the way that this was really a mystery about the penguins. I should have been researching the penguins. And I needed to look for similar problem. This was an extremely unusual problem. Was there anything like it? Project Amazon. Uchida and I followed the drain canal behind the school back to the reservoir. It was a humid day and quite hot, as if summer had suddenly arrived. It seemed like the plants along the drain were getting bigger. Uchida was particularly silent that day. On days like this, I practiced being silent myself. Being silent all day was actively painful, but I could manage about 2 hours without much issue. I pushed past the broad-leaved bamboo without a word, thinking about my lack of progress on the Penguin Highway research. We made it to the reservoir again. It had rained the day before, so the water level was a little bit higher. We walked around the perimeter of the reservoir to the drain that emptied into it. There was another fence on that side. Last time, we had called off our exploration here. Today, we were pressing further on. We climbed the fence and followed the narrow path to the drain. The broadleaf bamboo grew high here, as well, and it was rather dark. At last, we emerged from the broad-leaved bamboo and found ourselves in an area with a number of rice paddies surrounded by bamboo groves. Paved roads and drains snaked between the rice paddies. Every now and then, there was a small metal slice gate. There was water in the paddies, but nothing growing yet. Like we've gone back in time, Uchida said, breaking his silence. But the shopping mall's just over there, I said, pointing past the bamboo grove. We could just catch a glimpse of the huge mall we sometimes went to on the weekends. We walked through the paddies. The humidity had us sweating. Along the way, we found a strange path branching off from the paved road into the paddies. There was pine trees on either side. At the end of the road was a Shinto shrine, on the verge of being swallowed by the bamboo grove. Uchida and I made a base on the stone stairs under the shrine's traditional-looking gate, drank some cold tea, and wiped away our sweat. The thermos sparkled like a device used for experiments in outer space. We made a note on the shrine, on the new map we'd started. See, this one's already more detailed than the one Suzuki stole. Yeah, Uchida said happily. They won't find this shrine looking on that map. Our break finished, we started walking through the paddies again. Beyond the paddies and the bamboo groves, we could see a road. We saw big trucks and family sedans passing by. Aoyama, you should defeat Suzuki once and for all, Uchida said, and then establish a new Aoyama empire. I won't create an empire. I don't want to be an emperor. And if there was an Aoyama empire, the two of us wouldn't be able to explore freely. True, Uchida said after thinking this over. Maybe we're better off the way things are. The road had 2 lanes for traffic in each direction, and there was a lot of cars on them. This was the National Highway. The drainage canal went through a tunnel under the highway and out the other side. The tunnel was very dark, so we were very careful going through, and thankfully the walking path continued the entire distance. We came out the other side of the tunnel and discovered that the drain had a parking lot and made a hard turn to the right. We stopped and made some observations about the abandoned parking lot. There was a large, broken-down car sitting there. It looked like this lot once belonged to a restaurant built along the side of the highway. But the restaurant had gone out of business. This place may have been here for long before our neighborhood was started. The building had an impressive roof, like a Japanese castle, and it was covered in crows. We've come a long way, Uchida said, looking nervous. The drain kept going past the parking lot and restaurant. There were plants growing thick on both sides. Every time the crows squawked, Uchida tugged at my clothes. I wonder how far the drain goes, I murmured. Maybe to the ends of the earth. That far? I always feel like that's the case. When I'm in the car with my father, I feel like if we follow this road, it would take us all the way to the ends of the earth. I wonder what that's like. I don't know. But I bet there's absolutely nothing there. Maybe a little research laboratory dedicated to observing the ends of the earth. Beyond that point, none shall pass. That's how I imagine it anyway. Sounds scary. I don't really think so. I'd really like to visit a place like that. When we first moved to this town, I was still only 7. Now I'd done a lot of exploring with Uchida and driving with my father, and I knew more about the world. But back then, my world had still been very small. My house had been built in the middle of a huge vacant lot, and to my eyes, it was like my house was a laboratory, observing the ends of the earth. To 7-year-old me, it had felt like we'd come a very long way from the town in the next prefecture where I'd grown up in. We were at the edges of the world, and if we crossed the next hill, there would be no more world left. I felt like I had a duty to explore the world's furthest reaches. So as often as I could, I woke up early on Sunday and went out exploring the town. Even now that I knew the ends of the earth were a lot farther away, I was still exploring with Uchida. Aoyama, do you really think this water is flowing from the ends of the earth? I don't think so, I said. I just think it would be nice if it was. The earth is round, after all, Uchida said. There isn't any end to it. True, the real end of the world is at the far reaches of the universe. But there was another version of me deep inside that didn't feel that way. Even though I knew the earth was round, I felt like there was an end to the world that I could walk to. I don't know why. Uchida and I knew each other well, so it's a shame I couldn't explain this properly. We fell silent again, following the drain. Suddenly, we came to a clearing where the trees overhanging the drain peeled back, and it got very bright. There was a new green fence built along the drain. The forest that had been cut away and cleaned up recently, leaving vacant lots ready for new houses, just like our neighborhood looked before it filled up. The most surprising thing was that the back of the mall we always went to was quite close by. It felt like we would arrive back in civilization after a long journey in the wilderness. Uchida and I went to the mall's food court. We sat down on a bench and drank some soft drinks. Buying a can of soda after a big expedition made us really feel grown up. While he drank, Uchida was thinking. "Aoyama," he said. Then for a long time, he didn't say anything else. When he did this, I never tried to rush him. I didn't like having anyone rush me when I was trying to think. And if I didn't like something, I wouldn't do it to anyone else. At last, Uchida said, "Okay, I'm gonna say it." "What?" "I've been researching the penguins in secret. Like you do." "Oh, you have?" "And I've discovered something very odd. I've been keeping it a secret, but my research isn't getting anywhere with just me. I didn't want to ask for help, but I've decided I don't mind if it's you, Aoyama. What research have you been doing?" Uchida lowered his voice and said proudly, "I've been keeping a penguin." And that's where we'll cut off for now. That is where we will end. Uchida has a penguin, and he's been keeping it in secret. Ooh. Yes, well, today was just going to be a short stream, just like last time. I hope you guys enjoyed this brief little, this brief little thing. And, let's see. I'm gonna raid you guys into Sky's waiting room. That's where we're gonna go. Let's see. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? YouTube, where? Trying to find it. Oh, wait, did it get canceled? Did it? Okay. Then yes, we are going to go elsewhere then. I was wondering, I was like, wait, why has it got... Right. Yes, I remember now. I thought it was a different stream that she canceled, but that's alright. We all hope she feels better soon. So instead, I think Zoomy is still going. Yeah, it looks like Zoomy is still going. So, we are going to go raid into Zoomy. That's what we're gonna do. Yes, sir. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same time as normal. Back to same time as normal. 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will see you guys for karaoke. Unarchived anime opening karaoke. I will see you guys. Have a good night. Happy Thanksgiving. Tell your family you love them. Bye-bye.